August 21st, 1944. The Falaise Pocket, Normandy, France. 1830 hours. The retreat is not a maneuver. It is a slaughter. The roads of Normandy are choked with the burning wreckage of the German 7th Army. The air is thick with the smell of roasting horseflesh, diesel, and fear. Feldwebel Karl Hancke kicks the dirt with a boot that is falling apart. He is 26, but looks 50. He is a tank mechanic by trade, a commander by necessity. His Panzer IV lies 3 miles back, a blackened skeleton gutted by an American thunderbolt strike. "Hancke!" calls out Gefreiter Braun, waving from a thicket of hedgerows. "Look what the Amis left behind!" Hancke pushes through the brush. Sitting in a ditch, engine idling with a low, throaty purr, is an M4A1 Sherman tank. It is olive drab, marked with the white star of the U.S. Army. The crew is gone, likely bailed out after a track pin snapped, or they simply panicked. To a walking infantryman, finding an abandoned tank is like finding a golden ticket. It means armor. It means speed. It means not walking under the strafing runs of the Jabos. "Get in," Hancke orders. "Paint a Balkenkreuz Iron Cross on the turret. Big. I don't want the SS blowing us up thinking we're Yankees." They climb inside. The interior is shocking. It is spacious compared to a Panzer IV. The seats are padded leather. It smells of high-octane gasoline and rubber. Not the familiar scent of synthetic oil and sweat. "It's a luxury hotel," Braun laughs, settling into the driver's seat. He revs the radial engine. Listen to that. It doesn't cough like our Maybachs. But Hancke isn't laughing. He is examining the armor. He runs his hand along the inside of the cast hull. He taps it with a wrench. Clang. It rings hollow. He looks at the thickness of the glacis plate. 2 inches, maybe 2.5 at the slope. Hancke feels a cold knot form in his stomach. He knows the ballistics of every gun in the European theater. He knows that the American 75mm gun is mediocre. But he also knows what the German guns can do. "This isn't a tank," Hancke mutters, his voice lost in the engine roar. "It's a coffin." He realizes with terrifying clarity why the Americans produce thousands of these. They are disposable. But Hancke is not disposable. As they lurch onto the road, joining the column of retreating German vehicles, they pass the wreck of another Sherman that had been hit earlier. It is a twisted heap of metal. The turret has been blown clean off. The hull is melted slag. "What hit it?" Braun asks over the intercom, his voice trembling. "A Pak 40, Hancke replies grimly. 75mm anti-tank gun, standard issue. He looks at the hole in the dead Sherman. It is clean, effortless. The German high-velocity shell had punched through the American steel as if it were cardboard. Hancke looks around the interior of his new prize. He is surrounded by fuel lines. The Sherman runs on gasoline, not diesel. If a shell penetrates, they won't just die, they will burn. This is the Tommy Cooker. The Ronson lights first time, every time. "Stop the tank," Hancke orders suddenly. "What? We have to keep moving," Braun protests. "The artillery is getting closer." "I said stop," Hancke yells. He throws the hatch open. "We are not driving this tin can into battle naked. If we are going to survive in an American tank, we have to make it German." He looks at a pile of debris on the side of the road. There is a destroyed Panzer IV. There are sandbags. There are sheets of steel from a bombed-out farmhouse. Hancke grabs his welding torch from the toolkit. He pulls down his goggles. The blue flame hisses to life. "Get out," he tells his crew. "Start cutting metal. We are going to build a fortress." August 21st, 1944. Roadside near Troon, Normandy. 21:45 hours. The night is illuminated not by the moon, but by the flickering spectral blue light of the oxyacetylene torch. Feldwebel Hankey is no longer a soldier. He is a blacksmith of the apocalypse. The heat from the hull is radiating through his gloves, but he doesn't stop. He is lying across the front slope of the Sherman, the glacis plate, fusing a slab of rusted steel onto the American casting. "More rod!" Hankey screams over the hiss of the gas. Braun scrambles up the muddy bank. He is dragging a section of tank track, spare links scavenged from their dead Panzer IV. Each link weighs nearly 30 pounds. They are hardened steel, designed to crush rocks. But tonight, they will serve as poor man's composite armor. "Lift it," Hankey commands. Together, the crew heaves the heavy track section onto the front of the Sherman. Hankey tacks it in place with the torch. Sparks shower down his tunic, burning small holes in the wool, but he doesn't flinch. He knows the physics of penetration. The standard Sherman armor is 51 millimeters thick at the front. A German 75 millimeter PaK-40 shell travels at 933 meters per second. At 1,000 meters, that shell will punch through 85 millimeters of armor. Do the math. 51 millimeters of steel versus 85 millimeters of penetration. The result is a dead crew. But if he adds the track links, 20 millimeters, and the boilerplate, 10 millimeters, and angles it right, maybe, just maybe, the shell will shatter. Maybe it will bounce. "It looks like a garbage pile," Feldwebel, Braun pants, wiping grease from his face. "It looks like a monster." Hankey lifts his goggles. His eyes are rimmed with soot. He looks at his creation. The sleek, rounded lines of the American tank are gone. In its place is a jagged, ugly mosaic of scavenged metal. He has welded spare road wheels to the turret sides. He has bolted sandbags to the transmission cover. He has covered the white American star with a messy, hand-painted Balkenkreuz, and then welded a spare track link right over that. "It doesn't have to be pretty," Hankey grunts. "It just has to hold." A Kubelwagen car screeches to a halt on the road next to them. An SS Obersturmführer lieutenant leans out. His uniform is pristine compared to the Heer regulars, but his eyes are wild. "What are you doing?" the SS officer screams. "The road is for moving. Get that vehicle in line." Hankey stands up on the hull of his Frankentank. He holds the welding torch like a weapon. "We are up-armoring, sir," Hankey says flatly. "Unless you want to take this tin can against the British Cromwells yourself?" The SS officer looks at the strange, ugly machine. He looks at the 75 millimeter gun barrel, which Hankey has painted with white rings to mimic a German long barrel gun, a desperate attempt to stop friendly troops from firing on them. "You are insane," the officer spits. "Move it out within the hour, or I will have you shot for sabotage." The car speeds off. "He's right," Braun whispers. "We are insane. We are driving the enemy's tank, wearing German uniforms, in the middle of a retreat. We are survivors." Hankey corrects him. He points to the engine deck. "Load the concrete." This is the final touch. They found bags of dry cement in the ruined farmhouse. Hankey mixes it with ditch water and pours the slurry into a wooden form he has built over the differential housing, the tank's nose. It is a desperate innovation. Concrete is not steel, but it adds weight, and it might just tumble an incoming shape-charge warhead before it hits the metal. By midnight, the work is done. The Sherman M4 sits low on its suspension, groaning under the weight of an extra 2 tons of scrap. It looks prehistoric, a beast made of patches and scars. Hanky climbs into the commander's cupola. The hatch is heavy. He feels the claustrophobia set in, the unique terror of the tanker. But then he looks at the extra steel plates welded around his hatch. He feels a fraction safer. "Driver, start engine," Hanky commands. The Continental radial engine coughs, smokes, and then roars to life. The sound is distinct, a high-pitched whine that sounds nothing like a German Maybach. Every head on the road turns. Terrified infantrymen grip their Panzerfausts, thinking the Americans have broken through. Hanky stands tall in the turret, waving a German flag he has tied to the antenna. "Don't shoot, you idiots," he yells into the darkness. "It's captured! It's ours!" The gears grind, the tracks squeal. The Beutepanzer M4 748E lurches forward, joining the stream of refugees and broken machines flowing east. They are heading toward the Seine River, but between them and safety lies the corridor of death, a narrow gap where Allied artillery and aircraft are pulverizing everything that moves. And somewhere in the dark ahead, a British Firefly crew is waiting, looking for the silhouette of a tank. Hanky pats the cold steel of the turret. He prays his welding holds. August 22nd, 1944. The Dives River Valley, near Chambly. 10 a.m. hours. The retreat has condensed into a single, terrifying bottleneck, known as the Corridor of Death. The gap between the closing pincers of the Canadian and Polish armies is less than 2 miles wide. Into this funnel, tens of thousands of German soldiers, horses, and vehicles are pouring, desperate to reach the Seine. Feldwebel Hanky stands in the turret of his monstrosity. The air is so thick with dust and smoke that noon looks like twilight. The Sherman is suffering. The Continental engine is screaming, overheating under the strain of the extra 2 tons of scrap metal Hanky has welded to its skin. The suspension groans with every bump, the bogey wheels bottoming out against the hull. Temperature is redlining. Braun yells over the intercom. She's drinking oil like beer. "Keep moving," Hanky barks. "If we stop, we die." To their left and right, the roadside is a museum of destruction. Mercedes trucks, Kubelwagons, and Panther tanks lie gutted and burning. The bodies of horses, bloated and stiff, line the ditches. But the greatest danger isn't the dead, it's the living. Every German unit they pass trains their weapons on them. Hanky has to constantly wave the swastika flag, screaming himself hoarse. "Friendly! Captured! Don't shoot!" Infantrymen stare up at the Frankentank with hollow eyes. They see the jagged track links welded to the turret. They see the concrete nose. They see the mismatch of American olive drab and German field gray paint. It looks like a beast resurrected from the scrapyard. Suddenly, the column halts. A mortar shell lands 50 yards ahead, spraying dirt and shrapnel against the Sherman's hull. Clang, clang. The shrapnel bounces harmlessly off the added steel plates. Hanky flinches, ducking into the cupola. "Contact front!" A voice screams from the road ahead. "Enemy tanks! The Poles are closing the gap." Panic erupts. The German trucks try to turn around, crashing into each other. Men dive for the ditches. Hanky looks through his periscope. Through the haze, he sees them. 3 green shapes moving through the orchard on the ridge. Sherman tanks. But these have the long, distinct barrels of the British 17-pounder. Fireflies. The Firefly is the one Allied tank Hankey fears. Its gun can slice through a Tiger tank at 1,000 meters. Against a standard Sherman, it is overkill. Target front right, Hankey yells. Loader, AP shell. Driver, hard right. Angle the armor. Braun slams the levers. The overloaded Sherman lurches to the right, presenting its front corner, the strongest point, toward the enemy. Boom! The Firefly on the ridge fires. Hankey sees the muzzle flash. There is no time to pray. The impact feels like a collision with a freight train. The entire 30-ton tank is shoved backward. Hankey's head slams against the periscope sight. Dust and concrete dust fill the fighting compartment. We're hit, the loader screams, coughing in the darkness. Bail out, fire. No fire, Hankey yells, checking the sensors. We are not burning. Check the damage. Hankey throws open the hatch, ignoring the machine gun fire zipping past. He leans over the front. What he sees stops his heart. The 17-pounder shell had struck the tank directly on the nose, right where Hankey had poured the concrete and welded the heavy spare track links. The impact has shattered the concrete. The track link is sheared in half, glowing red-hot from the kinetic energy. The force has cracked the weld seams, but beneath the debris, the American steel hull is dented, gouged, but intact. The improvised armor worked. It didn't stop the shell by sheer thickness. It destabilized it. The concrete and the track link had stripped the energy from the round just enough to prevent it from punching through the main armor. It held, Hankey screams, a manic laugh escaping his throat. The garbage held. Gun up, the gunner reports. Fire. Hankey's Sherman shudders as its 75mm gun speaks. It is a short-barreled weapon, weak by 1944 standards, but the range is close. The shell strikes the lead Firefly on its tracks. The British tank slews around, immobile. Driver, reverse, smoke, get us into the trees. Braun slams the tank into reverse. The engine howls in protest. The exhaust manifolds vent thick, white smoke, a feature of the Sherman usually used to screen infantry, now used to hide a German crew. They back into the dense foliage of the riverbank, disappearing from the enemy's sight. Inside the tank, the crew is silent, listening to the pinging of cooling metal. They are alive. In a standard Panzer IV, they would be dead. In a standard Sherman, they would be ash. Hankey wipes blood from his forehead where he hit the sight. He looks at the interior of the American tank. He hated this machine an hour ago. Now, he feels a strange affection for it. It is ugly, it is foreign, and it is made of trash. But it is tougher than it has any right to be. Feldwebel, Braun says quietly over the intercom. The temperature gauge is broken, but I think we are leaking coolant. It doesn't matter, Hankey replies, leaning back against the commander's seat. We are through the gap. The Seine is 10 miles east. We limp there. They drive on through the night. The Franken tank rattles and squeaks. Pieces of the shattered concrete nose crumble off with every mile, leaving a trail of gray dust behind them like breadcrumbs. They are ghosts in a machine, riding a stolen horse out of hell. But as dawn approaches, Hankey knows the hardest part is yet to come. They have survived the enemy. Now they have to survive their own side. To the nervous German anti-tank gunners guarding the Seine crossing, a Sherman is a Sherman, and in the fog of war, silhouettes draw fire faster than flags. August 25th, 1944. The banks of the Seine River near Elbeuf. 06:15 hours. The river is in sight. Through the greasy periscope, Hankey sees the slate-gray water of the Seine. It is the finish line. If they cross, they live. If they stay on the west bank, they are captured or killed. But the Franken tank is dying. The Continental radial engine, never designed to haul tons of German scrap metal, is screaming in agony. The oil pressure gauge is at 0. Black smoke, thick and oily, is pouring from the engine deck, choking the crew inside. "She's seizing up," Braun yells, wrestling with the steering levers. "I have to fight her for every inch." They round a bend in the road. Ahead lies the ferry crossing. It is a scene of organized panic. Trucks are lined up bumper to bumper. Infantrymen are swimming across, and guarding the approach is a battery of 88mm flak guns leveled for ground defense. As the lumbering, smoking silhouette of the Sherman emerges from the mist, the German gun crews react instantly. "Panzer! Enemy tank!" Hankey sees the long barrel of the 88mm gun swivel toward them. It is the deadliest gun of the war. At this range, even his scavenged concrete and track links won't save them. The 88 will punch through the Sherman, through the engine block, and out the other side. "Stop!" Hankey screams. "Driver, stop!" Braun slams the brakes. The tracks lock. The tank slides on the mud, shuddering to a halt just 200 yards from the gun. Hankey throws the hatch open. He doesn't just wave the flag. He stands fully upright on the turret, exposing his German uniform, his iron cross, his face. "Feuer einstellen!" Hankey shrieks, his voice cracking with desperation. "We are German! Look at the cross! Look at the paint!" The 88mm gunner hesitates. His finger is on the trigger mechanism. Through his optics, he sees the white star of the U.S. Army, covered by a crude black cross. He sees the weird, jagged silhouette of welded scrap. And he sees a man in a Feldgrau tunic standing on top of it like a lunatic. A lieutenant runs up to the gun, binoculars raised. He stares at the monster. "Hold fire!" the officer commands. He lowers his binoculars, looking baffled. "It's one of ours, I think." Hankey slumps back into the cupola, sweat stinging his eyes. "They haven't fired." "Move up," Hankey whispers to Braun. "Slowly. Don't scare them." Braun engages the gear. The engine gives a final, metallic death rattle. Clank, grind, hiss, and dies. Silence floods the compartment. The beast has taken its last breath. "She's done, Feldwebel," Braun says softly. "The pistons are welded to the block." Hankey climbs out. He walks around to the front of the tank. He runs his hand over the nose. The concrete is cracked and falling away in chunks. The spare track link that saved them from the Firefly is twisted and scorched. The steel plates are scarred with shrapnel. It is the ugliest machine Hankey has ever seen. And it is the most beautiful. The flak officer walks over, kicking the mud from his boots. He looks at the Sherman, then at Hankey. "You drove this pile of junk all the way from Falaise?" the officer asks, incredulous. "Yes, sir," Hankey replies, saluting wearily. "Well, leave it," the officer says, pointing to the river. "The ferry is for operational vehicles only. We have no room for wrecks. Get your men on the raft. You walk from here." Hankey nods. It is fair. The tank has done its job. He orders his crew to strip the vehicle. They take the machine guns. They take the radio. They take the food. Before they leave, Hankey unscrews the fuel cap. He takes a rag, soaks it in the remaining gasoline, and stuffs it into the opening. "We can't leave it for the Amis," Braun says. "They might repair it." Hankey lights a match. He looks at the Beutepanzer one last time. He thinks of the American factory worker in Detroit who built it, never imagining it would end up covered in German concrete, dying on a French riverbank, saving the lives of the enemy. "Goodbye, you ugly bastard," Hanky whispers. He tosses the match. August 27th, 1944. The Seine River. 2 days later, the U.S. 2nd Armored Division reaches the Seine. Private First Class Miller, a tanker from Ohio, jumps down from his Sherman. He walks over to a burnt-out hulk sitting by the road. "Hey, Sarge," Miller yells. "Come look at this." A sergeant walks over. He stares at the wreck. It is clearly a Sherman, but it looks like something out of a nightmare. It is covered in rusted German track links. The front is a mess of crumbled concrete. Steel plates are welded haphazardly over the sponsons. "What in the hell did they do to it?" Miller asks, kicking a piece of the concrete. "Did the Krauts try to build a bunker on top of a tank?" "They were trying to survive, kid," the sergeant says, looking at the scar where the Firefly shell had hit. He traces the impact point. "Look at that. It took a 17-pounder hit and didn't penetrate. This junk actually worked." They stand there for a moment. American tankers looking at a German modification of an American tank. It is a silent testament to the terrifying adaptability of men in war. Karl Hankey survived the retreat. He surrendered to the British in Belgium 3 weeks later. He spent the rest of the war in a POW camp in Scotland, working on a farm. He never drove a tank again. But years later, as an old man in Hamburg, he kept a small, jagged piece of metal on his desk. It wasn't a medal. It was a fragment of an American tank track, fused with German welding rod. When people asked him about the war, he didn't talk about the glory of the panzer divisions or the genius of the generals. He told them about the time he turned a Tommy cooker into a fortress, and how, in the end, it wasn't the superior German engineering that saved him. It was a welding torch and a pile of trash. If you were Hankey, trapped inside a paper tank while surrounded by the enemy, what would you have done? Would you have the courage to turn the enemy's machine into your own fortress? Or would you bail out and run for your life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to discover more of the wildest World War II stories that the history books never told you.